need the population to understand this is imperative. We are all passengers on the Titanic right now, and that's a very literal term. And I'll back up to what you just stated in a moment. But mathematically speaking, and I'm not blaming everything on climate engineering, but I'm saying again that it's the single most destructive form of human activity on the planet right now. And that's saying a lot because we have absolutely trashed this planet, again, in the geologic blink of an eye. But mathematically speaking, we're losing 200 to 300 species of plant, animal, and insect a day. I know we're about to a break. I'll finish this quick. That's 15,000 times the normal background rate, 1.5% of normal. On the current course, we are not going to be here much longer. Those in power know that, but they're not willing to let go of their power. They're not willing to let go of climate engineering. We have to bring this to light. We have to stop these programs. That's our first and most important leap forward. So your suggestion of people understanding they're fighting for their life, yes, I agree with you. It needs to reach that point. If I could highlight one thing, Rob, is before I went into break, if I could cover two quick factors, is that okay? I was going into the speed at which the web of life is dying. In regard to insect populations, I think most people intuitively know if the insects die, we will die as well. Almost 10 years ago, Geoengineering Watch was, I believe, the first significant source to state on the record, because of our work with former government scientists, that insect populations were collapsing. And we had noticed in Northern California, we had discovered about an 80% decline in terrestrial insects. The climate and science community rolled their eyes and walked away from that statement and tried to marginalize it. Guess what? We now have peer-reviewed study to prove that we were right. Anyone who searches insect apocalypse will find that peer-reviewed study now proves that insect populations are completely collapsing, aquatic and terrestrial insects. In regard to bees, Rob, you know the bees are dying, I'm sure, right?
I have posted a bunch of stuff about this. Anytime I see it, I post it on Facebook. I'm like, guys, we lose the bees, we lose everything.
You're exactly right. Now, we tried to communicate with some of the head bee people in the U.S. that there was a much bigger issue than just farm chemicals and radio frequency transmissions. And that issue was toxic heavy metals, as we've discussed throughout this broadcast, that are a primary element named in climate engineering patents. In fact, their stated goal, your listeners can see on film and on the record, if they search Dane, Wigington, David Keith, they can see me confronting the world's most recognized geoengineer at an international conference where his proposal was to put 10 to 20 million tons of aluminum nanoparticulates into the sky annually. Now, and I confronted him as to had any toxicological studies been done, and he finally admitted that no, none had. So back to the bees. We now have peer-reviewed study. If your listeners search bees, aluminum, they'll find peer-reviewed study to prove that the bees are dying of symptoms that resemble Alzheimer's and dementia in a human being because they are packed full of aluminum. Enough aluminum, it's about 70 times more than would be necessary to cause Alzheimer's or dementia in a human being. Toxic heavy metals are killing the bees 1,000 miles from civilization or wilderness because the saturation of these heavy metals around the planet is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So the bottom line, again, there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Insects are collapsing. Wildlife populations are collapsing. We've lost 60% of Earth's wildlife in the last 40 years. At the current rate of die-off, and I'll leave it with this, at the current rate of wildlife die-off, if that rate does not accelerate, and it is accelerating, I know this is difficult to comprehend, but this is the math of the equation. We face a 0 hour for wildlife on Earth by 2026.